Right, these notes are going to talk to you about some words that you can use to translate into mathematical symbols. Just like in a foreign language, when you translate from one language to another, math is its own language, and we can translate from words into numbers and symbols and the reverse. All right, so the word frame that you're looking at is going to give you some words in each section that mean to put a plus sign, a subtraction sign, a multiplication, divide, and an equal sign. Then we're going to take on the back side and do some examples of how we're going to translate these words into equations and expressions for the class that you're going to have to be dealing with. So we're going to start with the addition category. There are the most words for addition and subtraction compared to multiplication and division. Right? So you will put more words in the top and the bottom than you will on the left and the right. Right? Some words that mean to put a plus sign, and some of these go back all the way to elementary school when you first started learning how to add things and what words they used, and then others are more recent and more popular. So I'll talk about those as we go through them. All right, so some words that we're going to be seeing are the phrase in addition to. If you see that, that means you need a plus sign. Increased by is a pretty popular one. In all, which takes you back to your elementary school days when they asked you how many in all. The word total. A lot of people think total means to put an equal sign. It does not. It means to add up the numbers to get a total. So it involves the addition. The word together. When you put things together, you usually add them together. Right? The word plus. Just like the symbol looks like. The word sum, and this is the one you're going to see the most, so put a little star by that one. In this class and beyond, sum is the one that they're going to use for addition the most. Right behind it, though, is going to be the phrase more than. So if you see either one of those, you need a plus sign. Gains, if you gain, you're adding to what you have. Okay. If you deposit money into the account, you're adding money into your account. Combined, this is taking you back to when we are combining like terms, we are adding them together. Okay. Above, if something is above 0, it's going to be in the positive area versus below 0. Faster than. Some of these later ones that I'm adding are not going to be as popular, but if they show up, this is exactly what they mean. And then the phrase added to. And I'm sure there's some others that you could probably come up with that would fit in here, but these are the most popular ones and the ones that you're going to see the most in this class. So that's why I'm stressing these ones the most. All right, so now let's go ahead and jump down to the subtraction category. Because adding and subtracting are opposites, a lot of these words that you take the opposite of are going to go in the subtraction category. So it's nice to do them in that order for that reason. All right, so once again, we are going to have a lot of words down here for subtraction because adding and subtraction do have the most words that go to it. All right, so the most important one, or the one that you probably remember the most from elementary school, is just the word minus. Whatever the sign is, that's exactly the word that you would see in the translation. Okay, you would see the phrase subtracted from. You would see the phrase less than. Okay. With money, if you're going to take money out of the account, you're going to withdraw it. So you would subtract it out of your account. Okay. You guys use the phrase take away when you were in elementary school. We don't really use that anymore. Smaller than. Get rid of. And these are all just little phrases that if you think about them mathematically, you would subtract to get your answer. Slower than. Decreased by. Difference is the main one. Like sum was the big one for addition, difference is the big one for subtraction that you will see a bunch of. Loses. Somebody loses weight, they're losing pounds, or subtracting it off. Fewer than. Below. Okay, so those are just a few of the ones that mean to subtract. Now, with subtraction, order is very important. It's not commutative like addition is. So there's a couple of phrases that the order completely matters in how you write them, and if you write them backwards, it is a wrong answer. The other words in subtraction don't really have that issue. So I'm going to underline in red the phrases that the order does matter so that you can see which ones you have to be very careful of. And there's two of them up here. If you see the phrase subtracted from, there is a specific order that you have to write that statement in order for it to be what it's saying it's supposed to be. The other one is the phrase less than. Okay, you're going to see a number or something in front of the word less than, but in a subtraction problem, that item goes behind the subtraction sign. Right, so I have an example on the flip side of this that we can talk about with the words less than, right, and I can point that out again to you. But those are the two most important phrases in subtraction that will cause you to have to pay attention to the order. The rest of them, the order you read it in is the order you write it in. All right, let's go ahead and go over to the multiplication side of our frame. Right? And again, there's not as many words here, right? But there are some words that you're going to see that if you don't know the difference between them, you may not think of them as multiplication. You might confuse them with something else. Right? So if we start with our elementary one, that would be times. Everybody says that multiplication's times. The big one, though, for the start item on this side that we're going to see over and over again in all your higher level math classes is going to be product. Product means to multiply. Okay? The word each means you're going to multiply. The phrase multiplied by, can't really go wrong with that one, means to multiply. The little word of, if you say a percentage of something, you have to multiply to get that answer. So of is a multiplication word. Right? Then we have the words twice. If you do something twice, you're doing it 2 times. Okay? Then there's some old-fashioned words that come out. Threefold or tenfold. Anything that has the word fold behind a number, that means you're doing it that many times. So threefold would be doing something 3 times. Tenfold would be 10 times. Okay. Exponents have their own words for certain ones, and those are involved in multiplication. So squared, which is the little power of 2, and cubed, which is the little power of 3, will go in the multiplication side. Okay. And then triple, which means to do something 3 times. Right, so those are some of the key words, with product being the most popular one. Right, if you go across to the division side, again, multiplication and division are opposites. The words don't tend to be opposite like the adding and subtracting are, but you're going to have just as many on the division side as you do on the multiplication side. Right, so the next one that we're going to have, or the one that you've probably used since elementary school, is divided by. Can't go wrong when the word is in the actual phrase. The most important one, though, for this side is quotient. A lot of people get product and quotient mixed up, so you've got to be very careful. Right? But quotient is the division word that you'll see over and over again in your higher level classes. Okay? Separate. When you separate something, you are dividing it up into smaller groups. Okay? The word per. If you're saying you're going 25 miles per hour, that is a ratio, and ratios are division problems. So we can actually put the word per and ratio kind of in the same setting there. Okay. Shared among. If you take a bag of candy and you share it among your friends, you're dividing it up among your friends. Okay. Along with that goes the word split. If you split something up, you're dividing it up. Now, there is one word that can go on both the multiplication and the division side, depending on how it's written. Right? And some of you may not think of it in both ways, but you need to start realizing that it can go in both places. So I'm going to write that one in green so that you can see that that's a different word, but it belongs in both categories. If you take the word half, when we take half of something, we divide by 2. So therefore, it goes on the division side. Right? Well, if I'm taking half of something, the word of is in there, half of, so that means I can also put half on the multiplication side. I can use the fraction 1/2 times something, and now it's on the multiplication side. So half is the only word that you can actually put in both categories, and based on how you write it, it would mean both operations. All right, then right in the middle are your words that mean equal signs. So this is where when we're writing equations, we have to put that equal sign. The most obvious one is the word equals. Okay. Then you're going to see phrases such as same as, equivalent to, yields, and gives. Now, there is one word that is extremely short, but it'll always be there for the most part in these statements that we have to translate, and it's the word is. So is your big one for equal sign. That's what they're going to use to help trigger your mind to remember put an equal sign there. All right, so it's short and it's powerful, but that's the big one. All right, so those are all the big main categories and words that you're going to have to see show up in anything we're doing in class from here on out, right, in terms of translating. So if you'll flip your paper over to the back side, you'll see that there are some examples that we can use these words and translate into expressions or equations depending on what the problem says. And we'll go through and do all 5 of these together, and then in class you'll be practicing some more with translating in groups and by yourself. All right, so for number 1 it says 18 seconds faster than Tina's time. Well, the key phrase right here is faster than, and if you use your word frame on the front, you'd see that faster than is in the addition category. We don't know Tina's time, so that's where we get to use a variable. I'm going to use just the generic letter X unless they tell me I have to use a certain letter. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. All right, so because I don't know Tina's time, that's going to represent my X. And because somebody is 18 seconds faster than her time, faster than means to add. So I can write 18 plus X. Now, because we have the commutative property, if you write X plus 18, I cannot mark you wrong. You are just as right as the person who wrote 18 plus X. Because addition is commutative, both answers are completely right. Right? So don't panic if yours is in a different order when it comes to addition. With subtraction, multiplication, and division, then it becomes an issue. All right, so for number 2, star this one. This one's got that key phrase less than that I was talking about, and this is one of those words that we have to watch the order of it. All right, we don't know the number, so that's where we're going to put our X, is where the a number part is. All right, but if you write 7 minus X, is that really showing you that 7 is less than that number that we don't know? No, it's not. Okay, so the trick to this is you know less than is a subtraction sign. The number or item that sits in front of that phrase goes behind the subtraction sign in your answer. And then whatever's on the other side, the a number part of the less than phrase, goes in the front. Right? So this statement now says that 7 is less than X. Right? X minus 7. Right? So you've got to be very careful with that phrase less than. Right? That word than throws it all off. If it just said less by itself, it would be 7 minus X, but that than in there makes a big difference. All right, for number 3, the key word is quotient. Right? Quotient means to divide. When you're doing division problems, the way that it's read is the way you write it. So the first thing you run into is your top. The second thing you run into is your bottom. So it says the quotient of a number, so I don't know that, divided by, and then and 9. So whatever's after the word and goes on the bottom. Do not use the division sign that looks like this from elementary school. We don't use those anymore. Your division signs now need to look like fraction bars. So it needs to say X divided by 9, just like I have it there. Now continue the problem because it's not done. It says is 6. We know that is means equals and then 6. You do not solve this. You're just translating right now. We'll work on solving in a couple weeks. For number 4, there's the word half that I was talking about. So I'm going to be able to show you 2 different answers that are still going to be worth full credit because neither one of them is going to be wrong. If you think of half of Jose's allowance, and we don't know Jose's allowance, that's what our X is. Right? If you think of half of it as division, divide by 2, then Jose's allowance is X, we don't know, and if we're taking half of it, we're dividing by 2. Okay? That's one answer. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. I have to give you full credit. Right? But if you think of half as the fraction 1/2, and then the key word being of meaning multiply, then you would take 1/2 times X, right? Because you're taking 1/2 of his allowance that we don't know, right? So both of those answers are 100% correct, right? It's just a matter of what you personally interpret it as and how you want to write it. Okay, so please know the difference between those two and know that half is the only word that does that. All right, and for number 5, we have 3 pairs of jeans at $D each, yields $106.50. They told us we had to use the letter D, so you cannot change it, right? If they don't tell you the letter, then you can use your own. All right, we have 3 pairs of jeans. We don't know how much money they are, but the key word means each here. That means if they're all the same dollar amount and I have 3 of them, I'm going to multiply 3 times that value. So this will be 3D. Okay, and then yields right here is one of our equal sign words, so we put the equal sign, and then $106.50 goes on the other side. Again, we're not interested in solving it. We're only interested in the translation for this point. Okay, so we'll continue to practice with these words and you'll get more familiar with them if you're a little rusty with them, right? But you should have seen and heard all of these words before, right? We do this almost every year in math. Even when you get into higher math, you still have a day where you talk about translating, right? So hopefully these words are just coming back to the surface of your mind and you remember what they're about.